Okay, the potentiometers on the MicroPro all are to control either a speed or concentration or time setting. So the rinse adjustment that we just made, the farther I turn this clockwise, the faster the rinse motor is going to run. If I had a sanitizer pump, I'd be able to do exactly the same thing with this potentiometer. But since this unit doesn't have a sani pump, that's not going to be active. The detergent, and it says, if you look at this closely, it says detergent and recharge. That means that if it's in probe mode, this is the detergent concentration potentiometer, and if it's in probeless mode, it's the recharge potentiometer. So in detergent mode, the farther I turn this potentiometer to the right, the more detergent I'm going to get. If that's still not enough detergent, I'm going to turn it all the way back to the left, and I'm going to flip this from low range to high range, which is like simulating being able to turn this potentiometer twice. And then in high range, I can turn it all the way to the end again. You always want to make sure that when you're working with these potentiometers that you don't push them too hard. When they stop at the end, don't try to push them farther, because if you break them, that's the end of them, and they have to be replaced. You'll have to have the board replaced or repaired. And lastly, the alarm charge. So I'll flip this back to low range because that's where I want to be. But in probe mode, this is the alarm potentiometer, and in probeless mode, it's the charge potentiometer. Now, in door mode, at the lowest range, the alarm time would be 1 second, and if I turn it all the way to the right, it would be 64 seconds. But if the machine was in conveyor mode, this range would be from 1 second to 128 seconds, because a conveyor takes longer to settle the detergent than a door machine does. And you always want to make sure, especially on door machines, that this potentiometer is set so that the alarm goes off before the end of the cycle. So if your wash cycle is 45 seconds, this alarm should be set at about 40 to 45 seconds, or 40 to 42 seconds. So you only get a few seconds of alarm at the end of the cycle to let the customer know that they're out of detergent and it's time to change the pail. In probe mode, the alarm is a very important feature because it allows the operator to know that he's out of detergent. So for you, what does that mean if you're going to set one of these controls up? What it means is that this control is constantly monitoring the wash tank to find out if it needs more detergent. Every time the concentration level drops below the set point that you've set on the detergent potentiometer, the pump's going to start and it's going to call for soap. What the alarm does where you've set it, and let's say we've set this at 40 seconds, is that the alarm is allowing the concentration to run for 40 seconds to get to the level of concentration that you set inside the machine. If it reaches it within 45 seconds, or within 40 seconds, I should say, then the alarm will not go off. But if for some reason it doesn't reach or doesn't satisfy in 40 seconds, the alarm will go off to let you know that there's a problem. If that continues to happen cycle after cycle, that's usually an indication that you're out of soap or there's a problem with the pump, and for some reason the soap isn't getting into the machine. But the important thing is that the alarm is tied directly to the detergent concentration. So when you're setting this potentiometer, it's important to understand that the alarm is tied to the concentration, so that soon as the pump or solenoid start to deliver soap to the dish machine, that the alarm starts to count what you've set it for. So if you reach 40 seconds and it still hasn't satisfied, the alarm will go off. If it has satisfied, it will. So always make sure that your alarm is set to go off before the end of the cycle. Otherwise, your customer could run the machine without detergent in it, and then that'll end up in a service call and just frustration for you. I'd like to speak to the alarm setting. The alarm setting is a timer. And what this timer does is as soon as the machine calls for detergent, the timer starts to count. If the detergent doesn't satisfy before the timer reaches its setting, in this case 40 seconds, then the alarm will go off to let you know that the detergent isn't satisfying the dish machine. And if it does reach its set point before that time, in this case 40 seconds, then the alarm won't go off. And this is a simple way for you to know, or the operator to know, if he's out of soap or if there's a problem with the pump. Okay, now we've converted this machine, or this MicroPro 2, so that we can operate it in probeless mode. So let's just have a look at the settings. What I've done to convert it is I've moved these dip switches a little bit. So I've moved the probe setting over to probeless. I'm still working on an AM14, so I'm still in door mode. The low range, high range potentiometer are no longer being used. And I don't need Sandy with detergent, or the alarm is not going to be effective now because in probeless mode there's no sensor inside the machine, so I can't use the alarm. And all of the other settings are the same as before. The rinse adjustment is still for the rinse speed, and the Sandy is still for the Sandy speed. But now this potentiometer, which was for the detergent concentration, becomes the detergent recharge. And this potentiometer that was the alarm now becomes the charge. I've also made a few changes to the wiring. I've disconnected the probe because I don't need that anymore because we're not going to use a probe. Everything's going to be done on time. And I've taken the DPS1 and DPS2 connection away from the detergent signal because this machine is an automatic fill. So I've just hooked up my rinse connection to RPS1 and RPS2. So now I can adjust my alarm, or I'm sorry, my charge and my recharge on this to get the amount of detergent I want to put inside this machine. So I'm going to start this up. I'm going to make some rough settings for my charge. So I'm just going to turn this potentiometer up to about 9 o'clock, and my recharge just about 8 o'clock. We're going to put this machine through a fill cycle and see what happens. Okay, we've got the MicroPro 2 hooked up on probeless to an AM14, and the sequence of operation that's about to happen is that I'm going to turn on the switch to the AM14. It's going to go into a fill cycle, and as long as there's power going to the fill solenoid, RPS1 and RPS2 will be sending power to the rinse signal on the MicroPro 2. First, we'll get a recharge from the MicroPro, and the detergent pump will come on for just a few seconds. The rinse pump will run slowly, and after 20 seconds the rinse limit will shut off the rinse pump, and the detergent pump will go into its initial charge to fill the detergent into the wash tank of the AM14. So I'm going to start the machine now. That's my recharge. You can see my rinse pump is running slowly, and my machine is filling with water. In a few seconds the rinse pump is going to stop, and then my detergent pump is going to come on and put in my initial charge of detergent. Now we're charging the tank with the amount of chemicals that we need in this dish machine to operate when there has been no chemicals in it before.